Welcome to the Treasury Update podcast, presented by Strategic Treasurer, your source for interesting Treasury news, analysis, and insights in your car, at the gym, or wherever you decide to tune in.
Welcome to the Treasury Update podcast. I'm Craig Jeffery, your host today. I'm joined by Kyriba's Tom Gavaghan, and we're talking about agentic AI and Treasury. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Craig. Thanks so much for having me.
I know we're going to explore AI and Treasury, and we'll also touch on Kyriba's newest agentic AI offering they've named TAI. So that's a cool name. We'll explore that in a bit. But Tom, maybe we could start by discussing what is agentic AI and how is that different or complementary to generative AI and machine learning?
Yeah, I think we're all going through learning together in terms of the nomenclature. We don't try to be pedantic or purist here, right? But there is key differences between the different types of AI, right? Generative AI is what people are familiar with in your personal lives and the use of any sort of open AI models of ChatGPT or such. And that's your ability to use their technology to generate things like texts or images or types of content like that. Agentic AI is a step further. Agentic AI will use generative AI. However, it's going to be done in such a way so it's running or trying to run in such an autonomous way, decision-making way, process-oriented way, and those types of capabilities in how agentic AI works. And oftentimes, as it evolves, is working together with multiple agents that are performing different functions to achieve some sort of kind of outcome or goal.
So if generative AI is the making and agentic AI is the doing, how would you describe machine learning?
Yeah, and that's also like the part of that evolution as well. And again, machine learning will oftentimes get rolled into the AI conversation, and rightfully so. But from a machine learning perspective, that is standardized statistical modeling in a way to extrapolate various trends. And that is where you see the utilization of things like machine learning in prediction models, such as what we've done, for example, with forecasting in a number of different ways, as well as, for example, ways that you can use it to look at potential fraud prevention. We've done this as well using machine learning models to do receivables prediction as well. When will I get paid by these different invoices based on historical trends? But machine learning is using that historical data to really learn and extrapolate patterns against. There's different ways to do it. But I would say in terms of kind of the evolution of AI or the sophistication ladder of AI, it would go from machine learning into generative AI and then ultimately into an agentic AI experience.
Yeah, so agentic AI is using agents to do or to act on things. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on how important or impactful this will be in Treasury. Is it something that's needed? Is it vital? Or will it be something that's transformative?
Yeah, and that's something I think we're all balancing, I would say, right now in this, I would say, very early stage part of the life cycle. I mean, we're only a couple years into attainable AI, right? And what I mean by that is anybody now can go on any platform. You can easily sign up for your own accounts, obviously, with any of the names that are out there, as mentioned, whether it's OpenAI or Anthropic, but also all technologies of some form, fashion of the utilization of AI somewhere inside of their technology. Again, maybe different forms of it, whether it's kind of based on a machine learning or generative AI. However, there is a kind of a reckoning, I would say, in terms of how far are we willing and how comfortable are we in order to let AI do certain parts of our job. So whether it's vital or not, I would say at this juncture, it's not like it's not necessarily mission critical on certain things, but it will evolve to become that way, just as core treasury technology has been. If you would think probably back to the inception of the technologies that the circles we work in, Craig, the very first one, whatever that one might have been, would have been mission critical. No, probably because I know my other way around that system if I needed to. If something were to drop or fall down or break in that platform, I could get around it. Now you look at things like our technology, it's extremely mission critical. It's processing high volumes of activity. It's incredibly important in order to transmit payments and receive invisibility. So AI will go the same way. It will go in the same kind of pattern, and as it evolves, it will end up, especially the various agentic use of it, will end up having, kind of mission criticality. However, I do think, being pragmatic, we're evolving into that. And I do think as we look at the agentic AI experience, one of the ways that we look at it, and I think that we're trying to get people to, as we're working collaboratively together, by the way, with our customers, is think about it as an employee, and think about it as hiring people into your organization. And you have to treat it in the same way in terms of the level of sophistication that you're looking for and then the expectation thereafter.
I'm kind of interpreting that as it will become vital and then will be, I don't want to say addictive, but it'll become part of the warp and woof of Treasury.
Yeah, I think it'll become part of our just regular muscle memory and overall experience. Again, just as normal as someone getting up in their morning and logging into Kyriba every single day to do something, whether it's setting their position or moving their money or hedging their risk. It's going to be the same way. You're going to engage with your agents in the same way that you walk into your office and talk to your analyst or log into your platform. Your agentic AI experience will be the same way.
I think it's time for introductions, if you would. Could you give me the 1 minute about Kyriba and about Tom Gavaghan's role at Kyriba?
So at Kyriba, we're a global liquidity platform founded in the early 2000s and have grown ourselves to supporting over 3,000 customers now around the world, helping them in their overall liquidity management and liquidity strategies, whether that's just purely cash management, but all the way through to investment management, capital markets and borrowing, as well as hedging and now working capital as well. So one single platform used by over 3,000 different companies around the world, 60, 70,000 different users logging into Kyriba every single day to power their company's treasury and liquidity activity in different ways. In my role, I've been with the company for 11 years now. And in my role currently, I help lead our overall product strategy and solutions, effectively making sure that we're optimizing the next wave and evolution of Kyriba against those 3,000 customers that we have the privilege of partnering with, but also the next set of customers and what the market is ultimately demanding as we definitely especially explore growth in other areas of the world as well. There is nuances and differences in the world of treasury, as we all know, depending upon what corner of the world you sit in. So a part of my job is to ensure that we're hearing the market and optimizing what we're doing on the product for them.
Excellent. 11 years too. I may have guessed 8, but that's awesome. That's a good run so far. So back onto agentic AI in Treasury. I want to talk about what's realistic. What can it do now? What will it be able to do? What's a realistic way to look at it? You gave a little bit of a tempered approach that it will become, kind of ingrained. But what level will it perform at?
Yeah, because I think we have to be pragmatic and we have to be fair in terms of something that ultimately we hold very sacred, I would say, in terms of what Treasury does. It's an incredibly important function of a company, and it's extremely sensitive in terms of what Treasury does, making sure that we're doing things in a secure way and limiting the risk in doing so. So we have to, as we continue to evolve in the use of AI, we have to keep that in context always. Yeah, one of the things is, like I said, is look at your use of AI in the same way as hiring a new employee. And when you hire a new employee, you hire at certain job levels, depending upon your demand and needs within your organization. I need an intern for this, or I need an analyst for that, or we're looking for our CFO, a new CFO to run our finance operation, for example. Now, the use of AI is evolving in terms of the complexities that it will do. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that AI can do the functions of a CFO and the importance of that job. I don't think we're there yet. We're being very, very realistic and very fair here. There is a divide that I think the gap is narrowing between years of a lot of noise in the market, a lot of excitement and fever around the use of AI, a lot of messaging at a marketing level. And now the gap is closing between what was the vision and what can the technologies ultimately do. In Kyriba, we're doing this in a very pragmatic and fair way and using our customers and working with our customers and a co-innovation. So we're bringing them along on the journey. One of the things we haven't observed in the market is there's been a lot of excitement, like I said, and messaging about AI, but we haven't seen the practical adoption of it at a grand scale. And that's rooted in fear, and I won't say fear, maybe that's too aggressive of a word, but it's rooted in discomfort, just in the same way as if I were to say, hey, Craig, I had this really, really smart kid. He's just out of college here. He's going to be your CFO or he's going to be your group treasurer. I think pretty sure you would scrutinize that a little bit and not just take my word for granted there and just let that person run a big job. AI's got to do the same thing. We have to incrementally evolve it and monitor its way of doing things, and ultimately, make sure and coach it along the way, just like you would a new employee into your organization. So the chasm is closing. When we talk to our customers and when I'm in different forums, I always kind of test the theories of the audience and where their heads at. When you talk about the use of AI and you talk about things like tagging for accounting purposes or trend analysis for forecasting, these are the things that everybody's saying, yeah, I want that, I want to do that. But when you start talking about, well, what if the agent experience would be able to automatically optimize your liquidity based on interest rate shifts for the day, based on money market yields and where those are currently sitting, and helping make the decision of potentially where that liquidity should go to borrowing, repaying my borrowing, for example, or investing, you sense the discomfort. No. I don't. And it's the same way as if I were to say, hey, here's this new employee, day one, he's going to be in charge, or they are going to be in charge of doing all of that thing. You're going to monitor that. You're going to police it. You're going to check their work and validate that this thing's working. And we're approaching it again the same way. We look at the evolution just like you would as taking in an analyst and then promoting that analyst to a senior analyst to, some treasurer level, for example. But we're doing that in a pragmatic way.
So that pragmatism for training, using, improving, I think I want to get into that in just a moment, but maybe on the expectations, where is AI? And I know it could differ from company to company, between companies. Is it better than an intern?
Yeah, I would say it's at an analyst level for sure. I mean, it literally, actually, as we work on TAI, which we'll talk about ourselves, we're approaching it and developing this and pushing this out as an analyst type experience. Effectively, looking at AI to help in those situations where your analyst is helping assess big sets of information, complex sets of data, make sense of it, but doing it in a very, very quick way such that I can make a reactive decision to something that's happening in my organization or something that's happening in the market. But I would say pragmatically, yeah, it's at like an analyst level.
And whether it's an intern, an analyst, or a senior analyst, they're going to come and check things, right? They're going to, in the beginning, they're going to need more review. And at other points when they get stuck, they need to come to a person. So that's the human in the middle, or the person in the middle, right?
And I think it's the beauty of evolving this and technologies and platforms like Kyriba that have a rooted foundation and overall control and workflow to cater to the needs of our unique customer of treasury. So that inherently it exists, which we're fortunate for, meaning that your AI cannot go out of control. Why? Because Kyriba already has the enabled controls in place that we have used for decades now at this point for the human use of our system. So if the agent is making any sort of additional recommendations and then taking that a step further and sweeping your cash, or potentially, doing pre-trade, which we haven't seen adoption yet, but that will happen. Always remember, you're still going to gate that with what you already do today. It's no different than your analyst making that transaction, that pre-trade, or the agent doing the same thing. You're still going to validate it. You're still going to put it through your normal set of approvals and rules that you've had in place, ensuring that you're within compliance and policy.
I like your example on the workflow where there's various steps and you complete those steps and you can see them and they're mapped out. Agents, agentic AI uses agents, and you can make lots of agents and you can orchestrate them by other agents. So are you orchestrating, here's these 5 agents within this one workflow block, and it helps decision those and bring it to a person? The next one has another set of agents, one agent or many agents to help accomplish that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because that's the challenge that I think you have, especially in a SaaS software environment. Because if you take AI out of it, when you're building any sort of technology like Kyriba, with 3,000 plus different customers, remember that's only one single technology. So it has to be adaptable to the unique ways in which our customers are using Kyriba at its core. Whether you're a university or whether you're a global conglomerate company or a private equity company, it's all using the same exact technology, just configured and in a different way to be able to support those things. When we look at AI and the incorporation of AI in a SaaS model, we have to treat it the same way. So as we're evolving TAI, to your question, we are approaching this now and we are producing baseline agent analyst experience. Kind of a normal treasury analyst level type of experience. Again, that uses all of the data of Kyriba. Remember, that's not just cash. We're using forecasting information. We're using financial transactions and credit lines and debt and investment portfolios. We have all of that data. But we're providing that agent experience such that the customer can say, hey, I want to tap into the agent or the analyst, and I want to go ahead and research certain things, identify certain information, make recommendations that I should do, just as if I was working next to my analyst and he's sitting there at my desk. Now, what we know, though, going back to the overall technology landscape, we have to make this configurable, because your analyst in your company that's a manufacturing company is going to look and operate differently than my analyst that's working at some sort of technology organization. It's just a different company in a different world, for example. And that's as we evolve now and as we go forward in our builder experience. And so what that does and where that will take us is the ability for customers to effectively build their own agents based on their own data and based on their own instruction. We've incubated this and been using this internally within Kyriba actually for our own internal development needs and organization, that the way we run our company now, and we all have our own ability to do that. We're bringing that to the customer, and we're going to do it in such a way that it's not IT heavy. It's going to be done by business users, but it's going to give customers the ability to be able to create the agent experience, but also unique and specific to their organization. Remember, the agents are going to be different. There might be a hedging agent, for example, managing the FX risk, and there's going to be a different agent that's monitoring month-end close for accounting, for example. Each of those is going to be tuned within our builder experience.
That's really helpful, Tom, on describing those components for how you're implementing that within Kyriba. What are some of the guidelines for training, using, and improving? Do you see either generally or within your particular environment, right? We have to be careful. You want to train it on the right data. You want to use it appropriately. What are some of those right data?
It's like the natural evolution of the conversation now, right? Because when you look at AI and the training of it and the learning of it and the memory of it, it's no different than human. And so at the end of the day, you have three different types of memory that we ultimately all work off of: your semantic knowledge, your procedural knowledge, and your episodic knowledge. When we have evolved as humans, at the end of the day, you start at procedural level. You know that if this, then that. If hungry, I cry. If crying gets food. And you create this procedural knowledge graph in your mind, and you kind of learn how things are done. And that's ultimately what AI is able to do, is to say if this, then that, and kind of create those patterns. Semantic knowledge is now learning kind of core factual information about data and things that are out there, and learning those types of things. And then you evolve to episodic. And then you learn that, oh, when these things occurred over time, light goes off, I go to sleep, light goes on, I wake up. Those are the things that you kind of continuously kind of learn off of and react to. And that's kind of the evolution of things. And what you're talking about now is kind of that evolution from a procedural kind of knowledge graph to a semantic and episodic type knowledge experience. And that's where we see a great opportunity now as we evolve, right? Creating these baseline agent experiences is just the start. It's just the tip of the iceberg for us. As we now evolve, the use of memory now becomes a key topic. Yes, we're using large language models, and we're doing that in a secure way, by the way, which we'll get to, which have a lot of information. However, we have to be the ones that are providing the context and providing the guidance in terms of the overall kind of episodic kind of knowledge that model needs to have. And it's just no different than like your book. Your book is based off of, when you look at Strategic Treasury, that's decades of experience, effectively all an episodic kind of like book on terms of like how Treasury runs. Now is an opportunity where we can tune these models to leverage memory like that, and that way kind of build best practices within it and say, hey, here's this agent that not just only uses, open kind of, or uses baseline language models, but is actually tuned with this type of knowledge and this knowledge graph behind it that is working in such a way as going back to it, a cash analyst that's different than an FX analyst, that's different than, for example, an accounting analyst. Each of those has its own knowledge and episodic kind of memory that you and I would have between the time we came out of university and started our job, and 10 years later, we've built up 10 years of information and knowledge. We could put that into the agent experience now.
Interesting. When you talked about episodic and semantic, at first when you started describing, I thought you were going to do the inductive reasoning and deductive. Inductive based on experience, and the logical from deduction, and it's kind of a combination of the experiences we have plus some of the logic. It doesn't line up exactly, but
yeah, it's absolutely all tied in there. And that's how these, how you can kind of grow these models and learning ways so that it kind of can deduct and do the right things.
You use that term professional memory, bringing professional memory into the model. That was pretty interesting, right? When you train it, what do you train it on, right? It has to learn on material. So it can learn on data, it can learn on, logic can learn on written material.
And I think that's part of the knowledge or learning experience we're also all going through. These models are extremely sophisticated and it's amazing technology. However, they are absolutely useless without knowledge, without data, which we can equate data to knowledge. And that's part of the challenge that you now see or going to see now as AI moves from a analyst level to being even more sophisticated. Part of that gap that companies are going to have to work through is ensuring that the data's clean ish so that your models and AI and agents are actually working off of things that are valid. Again, if you just think about it as if it was an intern or an analyst that hired in the company, they don't know where to get information, or if the information that they're going and getting is stale, stagnant, out of date, or whichever, they're going to make a bad decision. Your AI agent will do the same exact thing. So there is also now that going back to kind of the knowledge and information, there is that importance of making sure that it's the right information.
So to bring this to reality too, as well, that maybe a particular example, the Kyriba's AI is called TAI, TAI. What's the name?
TAI, TAI, trusted AI. We felt it incredibly important to do two things: learning from the market, kind of identifying trends, doing our own research, and kind of seeing things. One was to, as I said, to bring our customers into this. We have really, really smart people on the product organization and on the engineering side. We could put them in a room and lock a door, and they would come out with some pretty amazing stuff. However, would it be applicable to our customers? And we all know, what we do in treasury, it's very nuanced, it's very specialized. So we felt it important that we would work through a co-innovation program. We're now on our second iteration of that, where we've reached out, brought in a number of customers around the globe, ensuring that we had a diverse view of utilization, heard from them. What do you expect from AI? What do you want it to do? What are your use cases that you're looking to achieve? We built that around that as we evolve it. So the first part was ensuring that we have customer adoption. The second, or ensuring we have customer input and immediate adoption as well, and not just build something that sits on a shelf that everybody's scared of. Part two is part of that chasm that we identified in our own research and working with our customers is the trust element. I need to trust this thing if I'm going to let it do things for me. Again, no different than I have to trust the next employee that I have to hire. The area of trust when relation to AI is avoiding it becoming a black box that nobody knows how it actually works. And if it does, it works or doesn't work, is it being done in a secure way? There are very easy ways right now that you can build AI into a technology using open AI models. It's very easy for you just to hook into those open sources there, but that carries a huge risk in doing so. The moment that you personally, for example, write anything into, say, Chat GPT, you have to assume that that is learning from your information. And that is an open AI language model. So it is absorbing that and learning from that. And that's effectively become public knowledge. You have to think about it that way. So in treasury, we can't allow for that. If I were to share a spreadsheet or say, hey, take a look at this trend and it has my bank account information in it or has my customer information on it, that's a huge problem. The question ultimately becomes is down the road, does this information ever get sold, by the way? There's a lot of things going on at the regulatory level and in legality in different legal circles about, open AI models and such. We needed to bring that in-house. Within Kyriba, we call it trusted AI for a reason. Our information never goes out. It never leaves. It stays within our firewalls. It stays within our security and in our compliance that we run. We're not sending any information, anything external, such that those models will absorb sensitive information about our companies and their liquidity and their core secure information. All of that stays within our control and will remain that way. Because again, we see that as a kind of fundamental piece to adoption.
Right. You wouldn't want confidential information or proprietary information going out there. And I know companies that set up AI on their own, they're usually pulling that in to make sure it's
one of the things about that, Craig, that people don't understand, and I challenge them to do it, is if you've used, and I use AI, open AI all the time for my own generative AI experience. Hey, clean up this email, help me with this wording. I'm not shameful. Why not use it, right? It's good technology. But if you do it, if anybody's listening, go, and you don't know this, go on that model and say, hey, tell me about myself. And it will tell you, oh, you're Craig, you run an operation, you run your own company, you're in treasury. It's going to go through whatever you interacted with, it's learned from you. So now think about that as a company in an open world. If I were to be using and plugging my information in, for example, every single day and showing my cash levels and debt levels and account numbers and so on, they will know that. That's kind of scary. And again, because if that knows that, then maybe other things can know that as well. If we're keeping that controlled and safe within our own firewall, within our own data centers, and keeping that within our own compliance and policy, we don't risk that, ever getting into the hands where it shouldn't be.
Good points. Did you want to talk about model context protocol?
MCP.
Yeah, there you go.
So MCP for many people on the who are listening probably won't mean much, and that's okay. But we are seeing now, and it's funny. Literally just yesterday, we got a customer who reached out to us and was like, "Hey, what are you doing around this?" So now we're starting to see a little bit of momentum. Now it is coming, say, from I would say I'm currently sitting here in the San Francisco area, so it is coming from kind of those tech forward companies. But this is how things evolve, and it's going to become a norm. We don't need to get spun around the axle and get pedantic in terms of the naming of things. It's called model context protocol. What that basically means is at the end of the day, when you're looking at building AI inside of a technology, what ultimately is sitting behind the model itself at its core is just APIs. It's going and calling data from wherever it's instructed to go to get the data necessary to get the information to help you make the decisions and do what it needs to do. But in the core of it, it's all making sure it's connecting into those APIs. And when you go on any sort of, again, going on Claude, or if you go on ChatGPT, you'll see it kind of come up sometimes. You'll see bubbles come up that, oh, it's checking these things. And ultimately what it's doing is just calling APIs to go get the information from a different website or a different data source so you can watch it. So the issue ultimately is that, and I like to equate it, you say MCP is like the USB-C of APIs. And so what for language models, think about it this way. In the early 2000s, or late 90s, early 2000s, every cell phone that you would buy, if you remember, everything had its own plug, and you can never use the one plug for the other phone, right? It always had its own unique plug. So think of the phones as their own pieces of data where an API would have to get called to. So you'd have to effectively make sure that you had the right plug for that phone and the right plug for that phone. Each phone one's representing my cash level, one's representing my debt level, for example. Well, when you have a USB-C right now, on my machine, I can plug my headphones into that. I can plug my charger into that. I can plug a monitor into it, and it knows what to do. It knows what that technology does. It knows what it needs to transmit and how to transmit it. MCP does the same thing for those data points against the language models. It will go ahead and helps immediately kind of quickly get and interact with those informations such that it can also then cross-reference against other MCPs. So this is something that why it's important is it's very kind of new comparatively. You saw fever of this coming and the early part of this year, and you saw a lot of discussion at like the Google level and at the Meta level, you saw Microsoft level, you saw all of these kind of interactions or kind of communication of like, should we do MCP or should we not? And now you see this widespread kind of adoption very quickly happening at Kyriba. We've done this. What that's done is helped us scale TAI very quickly. Our back end is all controlled by it's all powered on the back of an MCP server. And what that does, it opens up a really big opportunity in the future, because if by having those MCPs, you could go ahead and combine Kyriba's MCP server with another technology's MCP server and have a language model and an AI experience that sits across all of that. I'm thinking about MCP today, and it's completely separate technology, but the same way that we thought about data lakes back in like 2010 and 2012 as the fundamental piece for me to go and do a BI, a huge BI initiative, I think MCP is kind of in that same camp.
So if we have agents and agents that orchestrate other agents to do functions, those happen within a system perhaps or within our company. But you're saying this is a way to orchestrate agents interacting with other agents from other organizations.
Yeah, and you might think that, well, isn't that a huge risk, or doesn't that couldn't that cannibalize a technology like Kyriba? Because what you're ultimately saying, Greg, is that you could go ahead and create this out of product experience that is powered by AI that again combines all these underlying technologies MCP. That's perfectly fine. Like that's gonna, that if that is how we're evolving and how companies are evolving, it's gonna take some time. We still need to ensure the accessibility of the data, the accuracy of the data, the timeliness of the data, the stability of the connections and the MCP capabilities. But we look for always the solution, our technology to the needs of what our customers need today and what they're doing tomorrow. We do see this as a huge opportunity to really kind of continue to provide that very kind of tailored experience, but in a more off-the-shelf SaaS-based technology model.
Yeah, and they develop quickly. You mentioned some of the concerns. I was just thinking back to, I can't remember how many years ago. It wasn't too many years ago when companies put in place all the spam checkers. Like anytime an email would come in, they would use the machines to check links. And what happened is, we have a lot of people we connect with and communicate with, and our systems on our websites detected all this bot behavior and started blocking all the IP addresses. So they're they're using machines to make sure things are safe. We're using machines to stop machines from creating distributed denial of service, other activities. And in a couple of days, we're like, wait, what's going on? And then it was able to be resolved. And now that interchange works well, right? We've seen those time and time again, right? How you communicate effectively. Tom, this has been great. I would love to explore a few things more in depth. Maybe we'll do another podcast soon, but final thoughts. And as we get into final thoughts, Tom is the host of Liquid, a podcast, and you'll see in the show notes a way to find it. If you like to type it in, you can go to kyriba.com/resources/podcast/ at the end. So you can find him there. Any other final thoughts?
No, I think this is super exciting. This tickles both my technology bone and my finance bone on that I have, and it's a very, very interesting time we're living in. I do think, as mentioned, like we look forward to doing what we are doing, which is working collaboratively in the market to approach this very nebulous AI experience together, and being, like I said, fair and pragmatic. It's not magic, and anybody who's promoting that, flick a switch and everything, I would approach that with some hesitancy, some caution, and some extra scrutiny in terms of A, is that actually true? And B, is it secure? What's behind it? Is my data going somewhere it shouldn't? Is an open model learning about me that it shouldn't? So we need to set that, collectively. We're being fair, and we'll see that kind of become the norm now as kind of things become more adopted, and we are learning about the potential of AI today and also what it can do tomorrow. So thank you for the plug on the Liquid podcast. It is something that obviously we do talk about and does come up in many of the conversations we have with CFOs, but it is an interesting time. We really like ensuring that we have partnerships with organizations and companies like yours. As mentioned, my job is to be the earpiece of the market. And that includes like I said, our existing customers, our future customers, and partners like yourself who have have your own good eye and ears out in the market. So we can kind of build the right technology of the future without abandoning the needs of today. So appreciate giving us time on the podcast, Craig. I do look forward to hopefully getting back on here sometime in the future.
Yeah, we'll try to keep our eye, ear, and agents on the market. And if everybody looks in the show notes as well, we'll have a link if you'd like to join us in October for an AI workshop. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. And thanks for reminding everybody. Look forward to it. See you guys in October.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Treasury Update podcast. Be sure to follow Strategic Treasurer on LinkedIn. Just search for Strategic Treasurer. This podcast is provided for informational purposes only, and statements made by Strategic Treasurer LLC on this podcast are not intended as legal, business, consulting, or tax advice. For more information, visit and bookmark strategictreasurer.com.